Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge headfirst into a stack of sources to extract the insights that truly matter. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the fascinating world of habits and how they actually work. Our mission for this session is really to pull out the most practical, actionable insights from James Clear's The Four Laws of Habit Formation, specifically looking at Chapter 3. The goal, well, it's to help you build better habits and, just as importantly, effectively break unwanted ones.
Yeah, what's really illuminating about this deep dive, I think, is that it reveals the surprising simplicity behind, well, pretty much all human behavior. We're going to give you a clear roadmap, sort of, to understanding why we do what we do,
Yeah.
and maybe more importantly, how you can influence that predictability to your advantage.
Influence predictability. I like that.
Think of it maybe as a shortcut to being well-informed about the fundamental mechanics of habit formation, hopefully giving you those aha moments that, genuinely feel like you've unlocked a secret code for daily life.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. Clear posits that every single habit, good, bad, whatever, it follows a remarkably simple four-step process. So what are these core components that seem to drive everything we do, almost on autopilot?
What's fascinating here is that this four-step process, which Clear calls the habit loop, is essentially our brain's brilliant way of saving energy. It really is.
Yeah.
Once a behavior becomes a habit, you don't actually need to consciously think about it anymore.
Right.
And this frees up incredible amounts of brain space for other more complex things. You mentioned autopilot. Think about when you first learned to drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every single action, every turn, every check of the mirror, it was incredibly focused.
Exhausting.
Exactly. But now, most of us just do it automatically. Habits work exactly the same way. Our brains become incredibly efficient.
That makes perfect sense. So if we're dissecting this loop, what's the very first trigger? What kicks everything off in that automatic process?
That's the cue. The cue is what signals your brain to actually perform a behavior. It's basically a reminder, a little nudge to do something. And it could be almost anything, really. A specific time of day, an emotion you're feeling, a particular sound, a smell, or even just something you see.
Okay.
For example, right, imagine you walk into your kitchen, right? And there's a plate of fresh cookies just sitting there on the countertop. That visual cue immediately grabs your attention. It's like the first domino falling.
Okay, so the cue makes us notice something. But then comes the craving. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me. It's not just about wanting the thing itself, is it? It feels like there's more to it.
That's a great point, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of people kind of miss the nuance. The craving isn't just wanting the cookie per se. It's the underlying desire or motivation that drives the habit.
To drive, okay.
Yeah. You don't necessarily want the physical cookie itself. What you really want is what it does for you. Maybe it's the comfort it provides, or, a momentary escape from boredom, or just the pure enjoyment of the taste.
Ah, so the state it delivers.
Precisely. And this is key because we often focus on resisting the thing, like the cookie, when the real battle is understanding and maybe redirecting that underlying desire for comfort or escape or stimulation. Without that deeper craving, there's no real motivation, no drive to act. Cues capture your attention, sure, but it's the cravings that give your action its power.
Wow, okay, so it's not just the object, but what it represents or delivers?
That's a powerful distinction I hadn't quite framed like that. So if the craving is the drive, what's the actual action that follows, the thing we actually do?
That's the response. The response is simply the actual behavior you perform. Now, this can be a physical action, like, reaching for that cookie and eating it. Or it can even be a mental action, like a specific thought pattern you fall into.
Like worrying, maybe?
Could be, yeah. Or picking up your phone to scroll social media. That's a classic response. Brewing a cup of tea. These are all responses. Now, your ability and willingness play a huge part here. If the behavior feels too difficult, too complicated, or just too much effort in that moment, you won't do it.
You're probably going to avoid it, yeah. But we're kind of wired to take the path of least resistance most of the time.
Okay, so the response is the action, and how easy it is matters a lot. Makes sense. But what about the end game? The payoff? What makes us want to do it again, or maybe helps us decide not to repeat it?
Right. That brings us to the final piece.
Yeah.
The reward. The reward is essentially the payoff you get at the end of each habit loop. And it does two crucial things. First, it gratifies your craving. It satisfies that underlying desire we talked about. And second, maybe more importantly for the long term, it tells your brain whether this whole sequence cue, craving, response is worth remembering and repeating in the future.
Ah, the feedback signal.
Exactly. If that payoff is pleasant, The comfort from the cookie, the satisfaction of a clean inbox, the energy boost from exercise, your brain registers that. It flags the entire loop as valuable, which makes the cycle more automatic over time. This continuous cycle forms this really powerful feedback loop that just gets stronger and stronger with repetition, embedding the habit deeper into your routine.
It's how they get wired in.
It's literally how habits become etched into our neural pathways, yeah.
That's incredibly insightful. Okay, so knowing this underlying structure, this universal habit loop, how do we actually use it? How do we leverage this predictability you mentioned to create those good habits we actually want, and maybe just as crucial, break the bad ones we don't? It feels like there should be a system here.
There absolutely is a system. And this is where James Clear introduces his 4 laws of behavior change.
Mm.
What's really brilliant about them is that these laws directly correspond to the 4 elements of the habit loop we just dissected. Cue, craving, response, reward.
Ah, okay. One for each step.
Exactly. They aren't just arbitrary rules he made up.
Yeah.
They work with how human psychology is fundamentally wired. These laws provide a practical, systematic approach to habit formation. And that's far more effective than just relying on, fleeting motivation.
Which never lasts.
Let's be honest.
Mm.
It often runs out right when we need it most, doesn't it?
Mm.
This system gives you something more reliable.
All right, let's dive into these laws. I'm ready. What's the first one? The one that deals with that initial spark, the cue.
Okay. Law 1 is make it obvious. And this applies directly to the cue. The simple truth is you can't really alter a habit you don't even notice or aren't aware of. So to create a good habit, you need to make its cues impossible to miss. They need to be obvious, visible, right there in your environment.
Okay, like how?
Well, for instance, if you're trying to remember to take your vitamins every morning, don't hide the bottle away in a cupboard where you'll forget it. Place it right where you'll absolutely see it, maybe next to your coffee maker or on your bathroom counter next to your toothbrush.
Make it unavoidable.
Essentially, yeah. The idea is to hit your brain with the reminder the moment you're in the right context to actually do the thing.
I've definitely done that with my running shoes, putting them right by the door the night before. It's so simple, but it really works. So, okay, once the cue is obvious, how do we tackle the craving? That motivation part, making us want to do it.
That's law 2. Make it attractive. It's pretty intuitive, right? The more appealing or attractive something is, the more likely you are to actually do it. And you can engineer this attractiveness. One way is by linking a habit you need or should do with something you genuinely want to do.
Like a reward beforehand.
Sort of. It's often called temptation bundling. You bundle the temptation with a desired habit. So, for example, if you're trying to work out more, but maybe you dread it a little,
Just a little.
you could decide to only listen to your absolute favorite podcast or watch episodes of that addictive true crime series, but only while you're exercising. You're leveraging something you already enjoy to make the desired behavior, the workout, far more appealing, more attractive.
That's clever. Yeah, I could probably get myself to do almost anything if it meant I got to listen to the next chapter of my audiobook. Okay, so we've made it obvious. We've made it attractive. The craving is there. What about the action itself, the response? How do we make that easier to actually perform?
That brings us neatly to Law 3. Make it easy. We are, as we discussed, inherently more likely to do something if it requires minimal effort. We default to easy. So the goal here is to decrease friction, reduce the number of steps between you and the good habit, make it the path of least resistance.
Produce friction. How?
It often means preparing things in advance. So like your running shoes example, if you want to exercise, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Everything's ready to go. Or if you're trying to eat healthier, maybe spend some time prepping healthy snacks. Pre-portion them, have them readily available right at the front of your fridge.
Instead of hidden behind the leftover pizza.
Exactly. You want to reduce the steps between you and the good habit as much as humanly possible. Make the good habit the effortless one, or at least more effortless than the alternative.
I think that's definitely why I always grab the unhealthy snack. It's just there, easy. Okay, so finally, the reward. What makes us actually want to keep coming back? To repeat this whole loop day after day.
And that is Law 4. Make it satisfying. A habit that feels good, that provides some kind of satisfaction, will naturally strengthen and be repeated. And here's the kicker, something really important. Clear emphasizes. Immediate rewards are significantly more powerful than delayed ones when it comes to actually forming the habit.
So waiting for the long-term benefit isn't enough.
Not usually for locking it in initially, no. Our brains are wired for instant gratification. So you need to find a way to make the end of the habit immediately satisfying. Celebrate your small wins, give yourself an immediate pat on the back, literally or figuratively. Check off your habit tracker with a nice, satisfying tick.
I do like checking things off a list.
It feels good, right? Or give yourself a small, immediate reward that makes the accomplishment feel good and reinforces the behavior right then and there. It could be something as simple as allowing yourself 5 minutes of guilt-free browsing online after you finish that work task you've been putting off. The brain loves that immediate sense of completion and pleasure.
It's quite elegant, isn't it, when you lay it out like that? How these 4 laws align perfectly with our brain's natural preference for things that are, well, obvious, attractive, easy, and feel good.
Yeah.
It feels like we're finally working with our psychology instead of constantly fighting against it, which usually feels like swimming upstream.
That's exactly it. You're working with the grain, not against it. And the beautiful symmetry of this system, the other side of the coin, is that to break a bad habit, you just invert these laws.
Oh, right. Flip them on their head.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You make it invisible for the cue, hide the cookies, delete the app. You make it unattractive for the craving, focus on the negative consequences. You make it difficult for the response, add friction, log out, put things far away. And you make it unsatisfying for the reward, maybe track the negative effects, feel the cost immediately.
Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, unsatisfying. Got it.
It provides a complete framework, which, like we said, is far more reliable than just trying to white-knuckle it with sheer willpower, because willpower is, a finite resource. It runs out.
That makes so much sense working with our psychology, but I'm thinking about someone trying to break a really ingrained bad habit, like, say, mindless social media scrolling. Even making it unsatisfying seems hard when that dopamine hit is so immediate, right?
Absolutely.
What's maybe the biggest hurdle people face when they try to apply these laws, especially the inversion part, to break habits? And how does Clear suggest tackling that?
That's a really common challenge, you're right, because those bad habits often have incredibly powerful, very immediate rewards built right in. The dopamine hit is real. Clear emphasizes that when breaking bad habits, you really have to deliberately increase the friction. You have to make the response significantly harder. So for social media, yeah, make it difficult. Delete the apps from your phone entirely. Maybe use website blockers. Put your phone physically in another room during certain hours. Log out of all your accounts every single time so you have that barrier of having to re-enter a password.
But it's steps, basically.
Add steps, add friction, make it a hassle. And for the reward, making it unsatisfying. That can be tricky. But you might try, say, consciously tracking your screen time and forcing yourself to look at the sheer number of hours spent. Seeing that raw data, that number, can sometimes be a stark, really unsatisfying reality check for people. It makes the cost more visible.
Confronting the reality of it.
Exactly. The biggest hurdle is definitely fighting that immediate gratification loop of the bad habit. But by consciously making it harder to do and trying to connect it with less pleasant feelings or outcomes, you can start to chip away at its hold over time.
Okay, that helps clarify the breaking habit side. So beyond these foundational laws and their inversion, are there any other specific practical techniques or tools Clear suggests to really put these laws into practice effectively, make them stick?
Yes, definitely. 2 really stand out as being super practical. One useful technique is called habit stacking. This involves literally stacking a new habit you want to build right on top of a current habitual activity you already perform without thinking.
Stacking, like Legos.
Kind of, yeah. So, for example, instead of trying to remember to meditate at some random point in the day, which is hard, you might decide, after I brush my teeth each morning, that's the existing habit, I will meditate for 1 minute. That's the new habit. You're using that established habit, brushing your teeth, as a natural, reliable cue for the new one. It seamlessly fits it into your existing routine.
Takes the guesswork out of when to do it.
Exactly. It removes that decision point. And another incredibly helpful tool, one that I've personally found really transformative, is using an implementation intention. This basically just means being incredibly specific about your plans, planning out the when and where.
Not just vague goals.
Right. Instead of vaguely saying, oh, I'll exercise more next week, or even just, I'll exercise tomorrow, you formulate a precise plan. I will do a 20-minute workout in my living room tomorrow at 7 a.m. Or I will go for a run around the park immediately after work on Tuesday.
Why does that specificity help so much?
Because being that specific helps your brain preload the instruction, almost. It makes it easier to detect the actual cue, like 7 a.m. tomorrow or finishing work Tuesday, and it primes you to perform the action. Fuzzy intentions, I'll do it later, often lead to fuzzy results, meaning it doesn't happen. Precise intentions, implementation intentions, lead to actual habits. much more reliably.
Plan the work, work the plan.
Something like that, yeah. And it's really crucial to remember that all four elements of the habit loop, and therefore all four laws, are interdependent. They work together. A weak link in any one area can kind of destroy the habit's formation or its maintenance over time. Like if your cue isn't specific or obvious enough, or if your reward isn't immediate and satisfying, the habit just, well, it probably won't last very long. The whole chain needs to be strong.
It's truly amazing, really, how understanding this fundamental habit loop and these four laws of behavior change can completely transform how you approach your goals, your routines, your life, really. It takes so much of the guesswork and, frankly, the self-blame out of it, doesn't it? It feels less like a battle of willpower and more like, well, like smart engineering.
It really does shift the perspective, doesn't it? From trying harder to designing better. And maybe this raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider. Something to mull over after this deep dive. Knowing that habits aren't arbitrary, that they are actually predictable, and knowing that you now have the tools, these laws, to influence that predictability. What small intentional step will you take this week? What's one tiny change you can make to construct a habit that genuinely cooperates with your brain, rather than fighting against it? What's one system you can put in place, starting today, to help create lasting, maybe even permanent behavior change?